People often say, blood ties are forever. Nothing else in this world holds the same significance. Such naive sentiments might resonate with dreamers lost in their fantasies. But not with someone like me. I am Nina Anderson, a 35-year-old woman who has mastered the art of achieving her goals. I don't believe in sitting idle, hoping destiny will favor me. I orchestrate my own destiny, setting my own parameters. While others cling to their principles and dignity, I embrace a harder truth: life is an endless competition. The meek perish. The powerful thrive. That's why when Christina, my perpetual source of irritation, someone I've despised from day one, entered James' world, I instantly recognized the impending chaos. James is my younger brother. I've been his mentor, his guide through life's maze, his career advisor, and his shield against manipulators. Yet somehow, he allowed a superficial woman like Christina to seize control. The memory of her first family introduction remains vivid. A 29-year-old playing the sweet and innocent card, her calculated smile concealing a manipulative nature beneath. It was crystal clear she belonged to that category of women who excel at playing the helpless victim while secretly pulling strings. Predictably, my gullible brother walked straight into her web. His words from that fateful dinner still echo in my mind. "Sis, Christina will definitely impress you. She's brilliant, and she's in marketing, just like you." I maintained a courteous facade. But internally, I recognized my adversary. Because no one usurps my position, particularly not someone of Christina's caliber. I've earned my status as a formidable force in Nashville's marketing industry through sheer determination. Unlike some privileged heiress, every achievement bears my sweat and strategy. I've mastered the art of situation control, client psychology, and most crucially, how to eliminate competition while maintaining pristine appearances. Then suddenly, I discovered Christina was claiming territories that rightfully belonged to me. Initially, I dismissed her as insignificant. A novice wife with minimal industry exposure. An amateur marketer who couldn't possibly rival my expertise. But then came the contract losses. Everything unraveled rapidly. Clients I had nurtured for years abruptly shifted to Christina. Long-term partners ceased communication, only to praise her name during meetings. Even James began valuing her counsel over mine. The situation became unbearable. I had gravely misjudged Christina. Initially dismissing her as a mere decorative presence, I discovered she was actually a cunning predator disguised as prey. One truth became crystal clear: inaction would lead to my replacement. This was an outcome I refused to accept. The pivotal moment when I seriously contemplated eliminating Christina arrived when our respective companies clashed over a lucrative million-dollar deal with the Henderson Group. This contract represented one of the year's most significant opportunities, and securing it would cement my market position. However, a complication arose. Henderson Group expressed a clear preference for Christina. Her authentic approach to client relations was magnetic. Though I saw through the charade, others readily embraced her deception. The situation infuriated me. She needed to be removed before the crucial meeting. Then it dawned on me, there existed numerous methods to neutralize someone of Christina's nature. Violence wasn't necessary. That's not my approach. My goal was to see her reputation destroyed. To render her indisposed, vulnerable, unable to function. Just one time. A single absence from the Henderson meeting would allow me to step into her role. Upon her eventual return, the deal would be firmly in my grasp. Her protests would mean nothing then. Thus, I devised an impeccable strategy. No unnecessary complications. No public scandals. Simply a minor incident. James remained oblivious to my true intentions. He didn't require details. His role was merely to follow my guidance. "We're looking out for her well-being, James. She needs rest." James, in his naivety, accepted my words. He invariably did. Everything was meticulously arranged. The final step was ensuring Christina consumed my carefully prepared beverage. Watching James set the coffee before her during our family breakfast, I felt victory within reach. The Henderson meeting would proceed without her. She would become another forgotten casualty, fulfilling her predetermined fate. But Christina proved more perceptive than anticipated. She orchestrated a cup exchange. And the one who consumed it was me. I detected the metallic flavor as soon as I swallowed. Then, mere moments later, my personal hell commenced. There exists an fundamental truth that the weak fail to grasp. Success isn't bestowed upon the patient observers. It belongs to those bold enough to seize it. I am not one to remain passive while others claim what rightfully belongs to me. Neither do I crumble and lament when circumstances push me into unfavorable positions. I dictate the game. I establish the rules. And this time, I would make certain that Christina would be permanently removed from my path. I possessed enough wisdom to avoid impulsive actions. I understood the world's mechanics perfectly. Each strategic move required immaculate concealment. I didn't seek to eliminate her forever. I simply needed her absent at the precise moment. And what defined this precise moment? The Henderson Group meeting. It represented the year's most significant prospect, a profitable contract capable of propelling my company to unprecedented levels. And which incompetent individual had been selected to spearhead the project? Christina. That position was never rightfully hers. I possessed the expertise, the ability to navigate high-value negotiations. I maintained the network, commanded respect from industry veterans. Yet Henderson Group selected her. Why? Because she embodied authenticity, sincerity, accessibility. Indeed, they favored her not for professional competence, but for that calculated, harmless persona she maintained. Laughable. I had to ensure her absence from that meeting. Yet outright termination wasn't the solution. Her firing would prompt immediate replacement. And I refused to be anyone's backup option. I required her momentary absence, just sufficient duration to capitalize on the opportunity. Thus, I needed a delicate approach, untraceable, arousing zero suspicion. I'd experimented previously. The contaminated tea before the previous meeting, Christina endured day-long digestive distress. The specially seasoned lunch, minor allergic symptoms, facial swelling, client meetings canceled. The mistakenly exchanged wine at corporate celebrations, severe morning migraine, day's schedule cleared. However, this occasion demanded something absolutely certain. James emerged as the ideal instrument for my scheme. My younger sibling's perpetual desire for approval made him perfect. His vulnerability, naivety, and most crucially, his enduring respect for me. I needed only to introduce a basic concept. Christina is destroying herself. I informed James that Christina was overexerting herself. I displayed worry, suggesting she required rest before complete exhaustion. I persuaded him that we acted in her best interest. And James accepted everything. Little did he comprehend that I had orchestrated an alternative strategy. I was well aware that James prepared Christina's morning coffee without fail. I understood that a subtle recommendation from me would be enough for him to comply. I slipped a tiny package into his grasp, containing a mild, short-term sleeping agent. The substance wouldn't cause Christina harm. It would merely leave her feeling lethargic, fatigued, and unsteady for several days, precisely long enough to prevent her attendance at the Henderson meeting. It was completely safe. It wouldn't leave evidence. Anyone would mistake it for workplace exhaustion. My sole requirement was straightforward. Christina needed to consume that coffee. That morning, I showed up at James' residence as scheduled, wearing my calculated smile. I noticed the coffee was already prepared. I observed Christina. She detected nothing unusual. I felt confident. Victory was mine. I settled at the table, raised my coffee cup, and remarked, "James has become quite the barista. Wouldn't you agree, Christina?" I observed as she lifted her coffee cup. I watched her raise it toward her mouth. I witnessed her nearly take a sip. But then, she abruptly rose, retrieved her phone, feigning engagement. She moved away from the table, deliberately stumbling, causing her coffee to splash. Reflexively, I moved to help her. And during that instant, she exchanged her cup with mine. I remained oblivious. I sat there, maintaining my smile, raising the cup to my mouth. The flavor seemed ordinary. Everything appeared normal. Until my fingers began to shake. My pulse raced irregularly. Perspiration trickled down my spine. I glanced up, and Christina was observing me, a subtle, satisfied smile gracing her face. I had been ensnared by my own scheme. In that moment, I realized the dynamics had shifted. I've always maintained that vigilance ensures success. Even flawless plans can unravel without complete control over every element. But I had overlooked something crucial. The hunter doesn't always maintain control. Sometimes the target strikes back. I detected the change immediately after drinking the coffee. Initially, it seemed unremarkable. Everything appeared perfectly standard. The flavor remained unchanged. James had brewed the coffee following my exact instructions. Then, moments later, a subtle numbness crept through my fingertips. Despite attempting to grasp the cup firmly, my hands started to quiver. I struggled to maintain composure. I had to. Drawing a measured breath, I returned the cup to the table, feigning complete normalcy. But the effects intensified. My fingers trembled. My pulse thundered erratically. An icy film of perspiration materialized on my brow, despite the room's moderate temperature. Then, as I raised my head, Christina's eyes locked with mine. She displayed no surprise. No uncertainty crossed her features. She remained collected. Unnervingly collected. The truth dawned on me with crushing clarity. I stared at my coffee cup. The pieces fell into place with devastating force. She had orchestrated a switch. Christina had exchanged our cups. An arctic chill coursed through me. I gritted my teeth, struggling to maintain my facade. I dared not reveal my understanding. I couldn't let Christina glimpse my comprehension. But she saw through me. And James? He remained oblivious to it all. Still absorbed in his phone, utterly ignorant that our carefully laid plan had just shattered before us. My mind raced through potential options. What actions could I take? Induce vomiting? Too suspicious. Excuse myself? Too transparent. The sole path to retain authority was to dissemble. Composure was crucial. I had to maintain the illusion. Yet my physiology betrayed me. Vertigo overwhelmed my senses. Reality became indistinct. Christina maintained her vigilance. She was patient, anticipating my inevitable collapse. "Nina, everything all right?" Christina's query echoed. Her concern rang hollow. She understood precisely what was unfolding, and she was savoring her triumph. I inhaled deeply. Victory wouldn't be hers. I manufactured a smile, though my voice wavered. "Yes, just slightly lightheaded." James finally noticed something amiss. "You don't look well at all." I nodded, struggling for steady breaths. Then suddenly, an acute spasm gripped my abdomen. Bile surged upward. Impossible. These symptoms exceeded normal reactions. Unless Christina had modified the substance. James grew agitated. "Nina? What's happening?" He abandoned his phone, leaping up. Though not the brightest, he wasn't obtuse enough to miss the obvious signs. I yearned to alert him, to signal desperately that my beverage had been tampered with. But my voice failed me. My airway constricted. My fingers trembled uncontrollably, rendering my utensils useless. Christina maintained her observation, with calculated indifference in her gaze. She comprehended precisely the unfolding situation. And suddenly, James grasped the reality. I witnessed his demeanor transform. Terror, bewilderment, horror, and as his eyes darted to Christina, I realized. He comprehended. He recognized that she had been aware throughout. Then, he uttered the words I dreaded most. "Nina, you consumed the incorrect cup." An oppressive silence descended. Christina deliberately set her cup onto the saucer. She broke the quiet. One devastating phrase. That shattered my existence. "Oh, so the coffee you've consumed wasn't intended for me?" James remained paralyzed. And I watched my carefully constructed reality crumble. I had stumbled blindly into her snare. Christina wasn't the target. I was. When you orchestrate schemes too frequently, you overlook an essential fact. Sometimes you're merely another piece in someone else's game. Today delivered that lesson with devastating clarity. I sensed Christina's scrutiny bearing down, like a hunter relishing its quarry's moment of devastating realization. James's words were irrevocable. There remained no possibility of denial. And most devastating? His revelation was unintentional. He was too startled, too disturbed, too thoughtless to realize that certain revelations should remain unspoken. I longed to silence him permanently. But a graver situation demanded attention. "You're looking rather pale, Nina." Christina's words dripped with deliberate satisfaction. I clutched my chair's arm desperately. I couldn't betray my mounting terror. Indeed. I attempted levity, though my voice betrayed my unease. "Perhaps I'm experiencing some allergic response." Christina cocked her head, malicious satisfaction dancing in her eyes, an expression previously foreign to her countenance. "Really? An allergic reaction?" James remained motionless, like a marionette abandoned. He anticipated my next move, waited for me to seize command as usual. But now? It was impossible. I recognized the inevitable conclusion. If I didn't regain composure immediately, everything I'd built would crumble into dust. So I executed my sole remaining option. I released a calculated chuckle, dismissing the situation as if it were merely an innocent mix-up. "Christina, surely you aren't suggesting something nefarious is occurring here?" Her gaze remained unwavering. "Then explain why you consumed my coffee?" James shifted his attention to me. His eyes demanded answers. I couldn't allow his composure to dissolve. I couldn't permit Christina to maintain her advantage. So I affected an indifferent shrug, as if nothing mattered. Perhaps I was simply careless. Nothing more than an unfortunate error. "Unfortunate?" Christina repeated, her eyebrow arching skeptically. "You believe you accidentally consumed a coffee that happened to contain certain additions?" I suppressed the urge to unleash my fury. She understood perfectly well. She was methodically cornering me into confession. And then, Christina rose from her seat. Her hand disappeared into her coat, emerging with her mobile device. My heart plummeted to the depths. "Well then, Nina, if this is merely a misunderstanding, you won't object to me summoning medical assistance." "Never." I yearned to knock the device from her grasp. I desperately wanted to command James to intervene, but I remained paralyzed, because any reaction would confirm my culpability. Christina proceeded without hesitation. She initiated the emergency call before my eyes. "Hello, I require immediate medical assistance at 1542 Maple Grove Drive. We have a woman experiencing severe reactions to coffee contamination." I clutched the table's edge, my pulse thundering so violently it threatened to burst through my ribcage. Christina had masterfully trapped me. The situation was deteriorating with frightening speed, and escape seemed impossible. James had lost all semblance of control. His gaze darted frantically. From me, to Christina, back to me. He began to falter. "Nina, are you truly all right?" My jaw tightened. His silence was crucial. He needed to allow my intervention. But Christina swiftly eliminated that possibility. "I'm retrieving documentation from my office. Don't worry, Nina, my phone stays here on speaker so James can witness every word of my emergency report." As she exited, I knew. My fate was sealed. My carefully crafted facade had shattered. I was no longer the puppet master. I was no longer the one orchestrating events from the shadows. This time, I had fallen into my own snare. And the most devastating part? Christina had orchestrated everything. Her eyes revealed it all. She had anticipated every single move I would make. She had known I would attempt to eliminate her presence. And she had been patiently waiting to demolish my empire since the very first day. The piercing wail of an emergency vehicle echoed from the street. James remained frozen, bewildered, terrified, directionless. And myself? I could only remain motionless, experiencing my carefully constructed reality disintegrating before me. For the first instance in my existence, victory had eluded my grasp. For the first instance in my existence, the outcome slipped beyond my control. And that realization struck more fear into my heart than anything before. They speak of justice's inevitable triumph. I reject that notion. Justice serves exclusively those who masterfully manipulate the game. And I had foolishly believed I held all the cards. But now, standing in this courtroom, facing the prosecution's bench, watching Christina maintain her insufferably composed demeanor, I understood. Everything had slipped through my fingers. I despised this sensation. Confined in this garish prison attire, my wrists bound, forced to submit to individuals who presumed they possessed authority to determine my fate. I, Nina Anderson, once a titan of industry, who commanded boardrooms, who captivated audiences of hundreds with compelling presentations, now stood reduced to a common defendant. My eyes found Christina. She was savoring every second. The facade fooled no one. Though she wore that sophisticated pearl gray ensemble, though she maintained such flawless poise that everyone present viewed her as an innocent victim, I recognized reality. She was a viper. Far more calculating, more merciless than I'd ever suspected. Exhibit a audio recording from the breakfast meeting. The prosecutor activated the playback. My voice resonated throughout the hushed courtroom. James assured me it would only cause mild illness, just enough for her to miss next week's meeting. We simply need her hospitalized briefly, nothing permanent. The courtroom descended into absolute stillness. My recorded confession, a lethal verdict piercing the silence. I noticed James tense beside me. He remained rigid, avoiding eye contact with either myself or Christina. My teeth ground together. That traitor. He had conspired against me. Yet now, he was playing the wounded party, feigning the role of someone who had been coerced. The guilt wasn't mine alone to bear. But to the jury, I stood as the sole perpetrator. Defendant James Bennett, would you like to make a statement? James's throat constricted visibly. His fingers quivered as he grasped the microphone, and then his gaze found mine. And he uttered the words that ignited murderous rage within me. I was merely following Nina's directives. I never imagined it would escalate to this extent. I couldn't have predicted she would actually. His unfinished sentence spoke volumes. My fate was sealed in that moment. He had just sacrificed me to ensure his own survival. My eyes shifted to Christina. She was weeping. Calculated tears. Neither excessive nor insufficient. Precisely enough to convince the jury she was a courageous survivor who had narrowly escaped my sinister scheme. I longed to shout at her. Enough pretense, Christina. You orchestrated this entire charade, manipulating me from the start. But I remained silenced. Because I had lost all semblance of control. The judge's gavel crashed against the wooden surface. The jury has reached their decision. Defendant Nina Anderson receives 12 years imprisonment for attempted poisoning and conspiracy to inflict serious physical harm. Defendant James Bennett receives 5 years as an accessory. The sentence struck me with devastating force. 12 years? 12 years, for a scheme intended merely to teach Christina a lesson? I cast one final glance at James. He refused to meet my eyes. A contemptible coward, finally grasping the magnitude of betraying me to protect himself. The metal restraints bit into my wrists. 2 officers seized my arms, escorting me from the courtroom. I avoided my family's gaze. I ignored James entirely. I focused solely on Christina. She watched me, her expression devoid of even a hint of compassion. And then, as I crossed the courtroom threshold, she smiled. A subtle expression, but its meaning was unmistakably clear. She had emerged victorious. She had utterly annihilated me. When you fall, others perceive you as defeated. But I am not one to accept defeat readily. Once, I commanded every aspect of the game, bending circumstances to my will. This time, I miscalculated. I failed to recognize my opponent's capabilities. And my punishment for that oversight? 12 years in federal prison. They say prison is a place to contemplate your wrongdoings. I reject such hollow sentiments. I'm not here seeking redemption. I'm here because I underestimated my opponent. And someone like me? We learn from our mistakes permanently. I mastered survival the instant I walked through these prison gates. No vulnerability. No faith. No submission to authority. Those who enter trembling, pleading for clemency? They're destined to crumble. I am not among them. My attorney keeps me informed. Christina now possesses the life I rightfully deserved. Henderson Group extended their partnership with her enterprise. She's been recognized as a leading female figure in marketing. And James? His fate hardly concerns me now. He received a mere 5 years, with potential early release for his testimony. A spineless traitor. He betrayed our alliance to preserve himself. But what truly ignites my fury? Christina didn't just succeed, she's being lauded as a resilient survivor. They commend her for overcoming an attempted assault. She claims victimhood? I endured the ultimate betrayal. I sacrificed everything. Prison is merely a battle of minds. And I've discovered, this realm operates by different rules. Gone are the corporate offices, lucrative deals, and ethical guidelines. Yet that won't prevent me from seizing control. I forge connections not through wealth, but with strategic thinking. I manipulate the vulnerable, transforming them into instruments within this corrupt system. I eschew physical confrontation. I simply need mastery over intelligence. Christina believes she's triumphant? She's mistaken. I have 12 years to strategize, scheme, and observe. But my stay won't extend that long. Someone of my caliber knows how to abbreviate a sentence. I've identified the weaknesses. I possess strategies for departure well ahead of schedule. And upon my return, history won't repeat itself. Christina prevailed by executing a superior strategy. This time, she'll be eliminated before the game begins. Is the antagonist always truly evil? Or are they simply players who failed to secure victory? I am no victim. I am an achiever. What are your thoughts on this narrative? Share your perspective in the comments section. My journey continues. Are you curious to discover what unfolds in my next chapter? Hit like and follow to stay informed. My return is inevitable.